There is a moment, just before the lights come up, when an actor holds the entire world in suspension. For Judi Dench, that moment lasted 60 years. She commanded British theatre. She redefined a global spy franchise. She carried the weight of an empire on screen. And she did it all with a gaze so powerful, audiences forgot they were watching acting. It began in 1957. A 22-year-old from York stepped onto the stage of the Old Vic as Ophelia. She wasn't flashy. She wasn't loud. She had something harder to name. A presence that made audiences lean forward in their seats, certain that whatever she was about to say mattered. The Royal Shakespeare Company noticed first. In 1976, she stood opposite a young actor named Ian McKellen and played Lady Macbeth. The production was so stark, so stripped of spectacle, that it's still taught in drama schools today. 2 actors, bare staging, more weight than any amount of scenery. That partnership with McKellen, forged in that single production, would outlast marriages, careers, and decades. But theater does not reach the entire world. Cinema would do that. And cinema arrived for Judi Dench not as a young engine, but as a woman already in her 60s. In 1995, she became M, the head of MI6. Sharp, unsentimental, utterly unimpressed by James Bond's charm. It was a radical reinvention. She held that role through 8 films across 17 years. Between those bookends, the awards arrived in a steady procession. An Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress in 1998, 7 Oscar nominations, more than a dozen BAFTA awards, a Tony, and in 1988 she was made a Dame Commander of the Order of the British Empire. An honor that felt less like an announcement and more like a formality, catching up to what audiences had known for years. But what rarely made the headlines was the life running alongside it all. She married actor Michael Williams in 1971. They had a daughter, Finty, a grandson, Sam, a family built on 2 generations of performance. And then, in 2001, Michael Williams died of lung cancer. He was 65. She was in New York when she got the call. She did not stop working. She did not stop performing. But anyone who has lost a spouse while the world continues to demand their presence knows that there is a particular, unglamorous endurance required to do both at once. By 2012, Judi Dench had spent 55 years building one of the most respected careers in British performance. That same year, she said goodbye to Emrin. What almost no one knew, watching her walk away from MI6 for the final time, was that something else had already begun. Quietly. Almost invisibly. Inside her own eyes. What does it feel like to realize the one tool your entire career was built on is quietly disappearing? And to tell almost no one? In 2012, the same year she said goodbye to M, Judi Dench received a diagnosis. She was 77 years old, age-related macular degeneration, AMD. It attacks the macula, the small area at the center of the retina, responsible for the sharpest, most detailed part of human vision. It does not, in most cases, cause total blindness. What it does is crueler. It hollows out the center of sight while leaving the edges intact. The world does not vanish. It blurs, smudges, slips just out of focus, exactly where a person most needs it to be clear. For Judi Dench, that day did not come quickly. It came slowly, across more than a decade, gathering speed in private, while she continued in public to do the one thing everyone assumed required perfect sight: act. In November of 2022, speaking with Louis Theroux, she finally allowed a small crack of honesty into the conversation. Asked how bad her vision had become, she did not reach for a dramatic answer. She offered something far more devastating in its plainness. Bad. Bad enough. Bad enough in that you're quite fuzzy. You're just a tad fuzzy. It was the kind of understatement only a woman who had spent 60 years controlling exactly what an audience was allowed to feel could deliver. Minimizing the unbearable, because the alternative was to sit inside it. By 2023, the fuzziness had narrowed into something far more absolute. Speaking to the Daily Mirror, she put it in terms that left no room for interpretation. I can't see on a film set anymore, and I can't see to read, so I can't see much. Read that sentence again. A film set was not a backdrop for Judi Dench. It was the place she had spent more than half a century learning to command, where the precise angle of a glance, the smallest shift of an eyebrow, could carry an entire scene. To say she could no longer see one was not a complaint about inconvenience. It was an admission that the very terrain of her artistry had become unreadable to her. And reading a script, a letter, a line of Shakespeare on a page. That had been the foundation beneath every performance she had ever given. An actress does not simply recite words. She absorbs them, turns them over, finds the breath and the silence inside them long before she ever steps in front of an audience. That process begins on a page. For Judi Dench, the page itself had started to disappear. What makes this loss so difficult is not just what it took from her professionally, it is what it asked of her personally. Every single day, in ways far smaller and far more constant than any award ceremony or film premiere, recognizing a friend's face across a room, finding a door handle without searching for it, trusting her own eyes to tell her the truth about the world directly in front of her. It has become impossible, she said. Because I have a photographic memory, I need to find a machine that not only teaches me my lines, but also tells me where they appear on the page. She used to find it very easy to learn lines and remember them. She could do the whole of Twelfth Night right then. The irony is almost too cruel to bear. She can still remember reams of Shakespeare, but she can't remember what she's doing tomorrow. She can still see the outline of Ian McKellen's face, but she can't recognize anybody anymore. In November of 2025, ITV News brought Judi Dench together with Ian McKellen to mark 50 years since their landmark Macbeth. When the reporter suggested filming her up close, she answered without hesitation, "No, you don't, because I can't see anymore." McKellen joked that they could still see her just fine. She laughed back, "Yes, and I can see your outline, and I know you so well in your Macbeth scarf." Then, almost gently, she said the part that mattered most. "But I can't recognize anybody now. I can't see the television. I can't see to read." McKellen asked if she goes up to total strangers and says it's lovely to see them again. Dench, still sharp, still funny, still unmistakably herself, joked back, "Sometimes." 2 months earlier on Trini Woodall's podcast, she had revealed something even more private. She no longer leaves her own home alone. "Somebody will always be with me. I have to now because I can't see and I will walk into something or fall over." True to form, she softened it with the dry humor that has carried her through every interview. "Fortunately, I don't have to now because I pretend to have no eyesight." And yet, asked directly whether any of this made her want to retire, Judi Dench gave the answer that defines her more than any award ever could. "I'm not going to be beaten." How do you keep acting when the one sense your entire craft depends on is the one sense you no longer have? For most actors, the answer would simply be, you don't. But Judi Dench was not most actors, and she did not stop, not in 2012, not for nearly a decade afterward. What she did instead was quietly, almost defiantly, rebuild the entire mechanics of her craft around a disability she had told almost no one about. "I've had to find another way of learning lines and things, which is having great friends of mine repeat them to me over and over and over again." She had to learn through repetition. And she just hoped that people wouldn't notice too much if all the lines were completely hopeless. It was not glamorous. It was not how the industry imagined one of its most decorated actresses preparing for a role. It was something closer to brute endurance, dressed up afterward as effortless talent. "On my scripts, my font is point size 22, so you can imagine, if we're doing a sonnet of 14 lines, all the others will have 1 page and I'll have 14. She called it ridiculous, a farce, but she was not going to give in. This was the invisible architecture behind every performance Judi Dench gave for nearly a decade. Built entirely out of memory, repetition, and the quiet labor of friends who never spoke publicly about what they were really doing for her. Audiences who watched her on screen during those years had no idea they were watching something closer to a feat of memory than a feat of sight. But even the most extraordinary memory has its limits. By 2022, those limits had arrived. Her last major scripted screen appearance came that year. Since then, there has been no major scripted project. The method that had carried her for a decade, friends, repetition, memory standing in for sight, had finally reached the edge of what it could compensate for. What followed was not a press release. There was no formal announcement, no farewell tour, no statement from a publicist marking the end of an era. Instead, the truth arrived the way most hard truths arrive in a life as private as hers had always insisted on remaining. Quietly, almost by accident, In June 2026, it was announced that the Shaftesbury Theatre in London's West End would be renamed the Judi Dench Theatre, the first West End theatre to be named after an actress. "My relationship to the theatre of comedy and to the Taffner family goes back many years," she said. "To have this beautiful theatre renamed after me is truly overwhelming. A woman who can no longer see the stage she once commanded now has a stage named after her. The irony is not lost on anyone, least of all her. These days, that refusal to give in has found a new direction." Judi Dench and Ian McKellen are campaigning together to revitalize the teaching of William Shakespeare in schools across the United Kingdom, returning in spirit to the same partnership that began with Macbeth in 1976. She still appears at public events, always with someone beside her, still sharp, still funny, still unmistakably herself. She lives now in Surrey, not far from her daughter, the actress Finty Williams, and her grandson Sam. Her husband, Michael Williams, has been gone since 2001, and she has spent every year since carrying his absence the way she carries everything else, privately and without complaint. A woman who once held the world's attention through her eyes alone can no longer use them for the one thing they were trained to do. And still, she has not stopped working toward something. She has simply pointed it somewhere new. "I don't want to retire," she said. "I'm not doing anything much at the moment because I can't see." She called the condition ghastly. She admitted that being so dependent on other people is terrible, but she did not say the word retirement. She has never said it, not once. "I'm not going to be beaten."